Good afternoon, traders. Thomas here with orderflowedge.com. A little bit of trader talk for today, Monday, June 23rd. And listen, what could we say at the end of a 5-point range day in the S&Ps? Not a lot to talk about, but there was some opportunity today. There was a few, what we like to call low-hanging fruit here today in the market. There wasn't a ton of opportunity. It wasn't trade after trade after trade. But if you had some patience, there were some opportunities set up within this tight range. And, the way that we trade, guys, what we do is just break this whole trading process down into a simple, logical process in the way that we both process the order flow information that the market's giving us and also think about it and understand it and draw conclusions from the information that the market's giving to us in the form of the order flow, right? And we have no powers to predict. We can't see the future with certainty, right? But what we do, the way that we think about the market, the way that we think about trades, the way we talk about it is, if we have a long bias or, for instance, this morning, a short bias into the cash open, we talk about the fact that, hey, it makes sense to be a seller until it doesn't make sense to be a seller anymore, right? What does that mean? It sounds so simple. It sounds almost like it's too simple, right? But that's the way that we look at the market. And what that means is we have a bias to the short side, right? And that bias is going to be intact until we have clues to say that, hey, things have changed and either things have gone neutral or buyers have stepped in and taken control, right? In either one of those situations, it probably doesn't make sense to be a seller anymore, right? So if we as sellers in control and we have things that show us that, we're going to look to be a seller until it doesn't make sense to be a seller anymore. Whether it's the market taking out an important reference point, whether it's our bias here, our order flow control changing from red to blue, whether we get into a short and we're holding it and the market's selling off and all of a sudden we see clues that, hey, sellers just aren't able to come in where they have to come in and prove themselves. All these different pieces of information are clues that tell us and alert us to the fact that, hey, it may not make sense to be a seller anymore. Let me show you an example from this morning. So here we are pre-market, right, on this uptick. We had sellers in control pre-market. We're talking at about 9 o'clock into the 9:15, 9:20 area, right? We had an uptick come in. The market was already showing us that they weren't doing as good of a job there as finding buyers as they were over here. And then the Delta Force score decreased even further on this retest here, showing us, hey, they're not doing as good of a job as finding buyers. We had a red, which is telling us sellers in control on both of our higher time frames. So our bias was to the short side, right? So we looked for shorts, we talked about it, and we got the market selling off, right? Starting to come into areas where, hey, we put shorts on, great. We have a nice, pretty healthy move in the market, especially with the range that we had here, right? So now we're looking for clues to tell us, hey, do shorts still make sense? Should we hold on for runners? We have to break it down in terms of, are sellers doing a good job? Are they proving themselves now in an area where they have to prove themselves, right? Because if sellers are in control, it's very easy for the market to get back down to the lower end of the range. But here is where sellers really have to prove themselves, right? Because in order to get into the TT and run lower here, they need to be able to start to hit stops, right? So here we fast forward a little bit, and great, they're doing what they have to do, right? They're starting to prove themselves, right? Delta Force score increasing, right? 5.9 compared to 3.1. We have all these red bars. We have proof that, yes, stops are definitely getting hit here. But as far as holding on for runners now, the market comes up. Still makes sense to be a seller. We're starting to get a little bit of a trend change on the higher time frame, but we still have sellers here, right? We come into a pocket of trapped buyers right here, so that's another reference point where if they were to take that out, you really have to hesitate as far as taking any sellers above there. But they don't take it out, and they give us another test down into these lows. But this is an area where now, when we watch this retest, where we're really trying to pick up on clues whether it makes sense to still hold shorts, right? Because sellers have to prove themselves, right? So shorts make sense until they don't make sense anymore, right? So let's fast forward a little bit here. Now we got the market selling off again. We got the retest. That's a very high probability retest right here because of how good of a job they did over here of finding sellers. But as they come down and take out this low by a couple ticks, what's happening here? The Delta Force scores totally decreased. It went from 5.9 to 1.9. We start to see a transition in here to buyers in control, and everything pointing to the fact that, hey, we don't know for sure what's going to happen a minute from now, 5 minutes from now, but the information that we have coming in is telling us, hey, shorts don't make sense anymore, right? Sellers didn't prove themselves where they have to prove themselves, right? So shorts make sense until they don't make sense anymore. As this is occurring and we're processing this basic, simple, logical information, we could see that shorts just don't make sense anymore, right? So it's time to get back down the flat and reevaluate. Now, if we go a little bit further, you see that, hey, on this next uptick here, everything's blue, right? We go blue, blue, and shorts definitely don't make sense anymore, right? If you were still holding shorts here, it made sense to look to take profit in here. This is not what you want to see, right? It's a matter of information that you want to see, confirmation, and information that you don't want to see for your trade, contradiction, right? If you're short, there's things that you want to see happen here, and if you're short, there's things that you don't want to see happen here. All we were seeing here were things that we don't want to see, right? As the market came back up, you could say, hey, maybe it's a chance to put on more inventory again to the short side, but now things start to turn buyers in control. At this point, shorts clearly don't make sense anymore, and not only that, but we've transitioned to buyers, so now we could start to look to be buyers on downticks until it doesn't make sense to do so anymore, right? So again, guys, just breaking down the process into simple, easy to understand logic based on market structure and the rhythm of the market, and things really just, as a byproduct of that, become a lot more simpler in terms of the trading process. Trade patient, trade well, everybody. We'll see you soon.